It's time to texture now this bulkhead light, and I have gone ahead and done a few things. First of all, I've added materials to this, so I've called that the base and that the base. I've called this the cage, I've called this the bulb, and I've called that piece in there the middle. I also applied all the modifiers, all the subdivisions, brought them back to one if I could, got rid of them if I could. And I've gone in and as you can see, I've applied that and I've unwrapped this, and you can just see what I've done. And what I want to say about unwrapping is I don't think there is an absolute standard way to do everything. I mean, there might be a typical way to do a cylinder, but when you have different objects, you might be able to apply some similar ideas, such as putting a seam down the middle. But when you have something weird, and it's not just a box or a cylinder, you got to say, well, what am I going to do? And so I would say just experiment. Unwrap it. You can certainly use some of the imaging ideas or methods when you're unwrapping, like putting numbers on there, putting checkers on there to help. But otherwise, if you're using, say, Substance Painter, unwrap it and bring it into Substance Painter and apply a material and see how it works. Now, that may not be a good way if you're trying to get a job in the games industry. They may expect other things, but in that case, you're probably going to be going to school for that anyhow. But I have unwrapped this, so I'll just show you a couple of the pieces unwrapped. Sometimes I have gone in and I've gotten rid of extra, vertices, whatever, edges, if I could, faces, that kind of thing. But so that's unwrapped, and that's unwrapped, and that piece itself is also unwrapped. So when I do this, I sometimes think about if I'm going to be using metal edge wear in Substance Painter, where you put an edge and where the thing breaks apart is sometimes determines where that edge wear is going to be, and also the sharp edges just in general. But I just put some edges down and I have a look at the unwrap, and I decide if I think it looks good. Yeah. So and then if you want to come over here. It's done by material. So for example, that's the base material, unless I've left anything off. And you can play around with the sizes of things and make things bigger. I don't always do that. It depends on how much I really need to do that. Sometimes if I have a long piece and I think it's taking up a lot of room, I'll figure out where it is on here, and I might say, you know what, I'm going to split that more in half, or in other pieces, and I'll end up having more seams, and I'll have to hope they're covered up. But maybe if I break that, then everything when I pack it can be bigger. I could certainly go through and take these and make them bigger, but I'm okay with the results that I've got. So just so once again, just experiment with the unwrapping, watch some unwrapping videos and see how it goes, and maybe try some relatively simple objects and get a material on there and stuff like that. And where you'll run into trouble is if you're using image maps, you can certainly run into trouble depending on whether if you're using them in Blender and you just have a complex object and you just scale the map to fit the whole object or to fit the whole piece, you might be okay. But you may get some broken parts, and if you need to put text on it, or if you need to put lines on it, and you have separate islands where you shouldn't, you can run into trouble too. But otherwise, just have fun and get something that looks cool. So I'm coming over here to Substance Painter. I brought in my object, and you can see I've got my materials right here: base, bulb, cage, and middle. And I've already baked it. And then what you do is you have a look at your model and look for any discoloration. But it looks like it's going to be okay. And we're going to go ahead and texture this. And it's going to be straightforward. It's just going to be an old kind of brass bulkhead light. I'm not going to do any emission or special glass on this. It's going to be like it's burnt out. In which case it would look cool if it was broken, but it's not going to be. If you look for images of bulkhead lights, let's say nautical bulkhead light on the internet, you'll find, old ones that people have. Sometimes you have to find them for sale, and you're generally not going to see them lit up. So that's why I'm not even really going to do this. But anyways, I'm going to start by creating a base sort of metal. I'm going to take this brass pure and I'm going to drag that in, and that's going to go on my base. All right, so I like that so far. I'm just going to come in. You can see it's got color, roughness, and metal. And I'm going to take the roughness, bring it up just a little bit, and take the color and just make it just a little bit darker. And that's my first layer there. I want to put some filter effect on this. I'm going to right click and choose filter, and I'm going to use what I often use, this matte finish filter, and that makes it look kind of grimy and discolored a little bit, and you can play with the scales here and the intensity. That's about what I want there. So even that right there looks great in my opinion. However, I'm going to turn on triplanar, and that should help to hide the seam in the back. It might still be a little bit visible, but hopefully we're not going to see that. All right, so we've got that. Now also keep in mind that the lighting that I'm using right now is the panorama HDR, and some people like to use the studio lightings. They find it's better for colors. It's more realistic. I'm just going to stick with the panorama for now. I think it looks nice and gives some nice colors. And it will look a little bit different in Blender, and I think we will bring this into Blender as well. So I've got this, and I want to have some color variation in this. And so I'm going to, I think I will create a folder, drag that in, and I'm going to call this metal. And I'll have that as brass pure, and then I'm going to just duplicate this one. And this is going to be color variation 1. And I'm going to come in here, and I think I'm just going to alt click the color. Nah, maybe I won't do that. I think we'll leave everything on the way it is. But I'm going to drag the roughness up a little bit, and I'm going to make this one a little lighter and just a little bit of a different tinge to it. And I'm going to add a black mask and a fill. And in the fill, I'm going to use, let's go with Clouds 2. And we'll have this. And so if I come back here and I turn that on and off, you can see there's a change there. I may come in here and let's just desaturate that. So just slightly different from the other one. And let's play with your balance and contrast. However, so there's a little bit of color variation in there and a bit of graininess. Let's look at that again. All right, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it again, and this is going to be color variation 2. And for this one, I'm going to bring the color down a little bit more like that, and you can vary this as well if you want. And I want to come over to the mask though, and I think I'm going to try changing that. Let's try Clouds 3. So we're just getting a nice kind of brassy metal here. The other thing I want to do is I want to bring the roughness up on 1 or 2 of those, and I might consider putting that as screen. And let's see if that mattered. Changed it. All right, so that's going to be my base metal right there. Okay, now I'm going to add something to this. Of course, I'm going to add a fill, and it's going to be just color. Sorry, and the color is going to be a dark, almost black color. I'm going to add a black mask and a fill, and in here, I'm going to reset that, and I'm going to start typing BNW for black and white. And I'm going to use black and white spots 1, and I'm going to play around with this a little bit, but I'm going to come down to the noise parameters, and I'm going to set that on max, which is going to be 8, and the disorder up. And I'm also going to put this on triplanar, and I'm going to change the scale. I want those small, so I'm going to type something like 70, and let's come and increase the resolution of this to 2K. And that's just going to give me these little black dots in here that I just think I want to have in my metal. Okay, so I got those. They're not even all that visible, but they're there. So I'm just going to call those spots. And I'm happy with that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is create a fill layer. We're going to do some edges. Color is just going to be white. And I'll put on a black mask and a generator, and I'm going to use the metal edgeware. And I'm going to play around with the wear and the contrast, maybe triplanar and maybe grunge scale, and in particular this curvature weight, which will kind of break it up a little bit. I just want a little bit, it'll give that kind of almost stylized look to this, and then I can come back here and I can just lower that a little bit, and it's just in there on the edges. In fact, maybe a little bit more would be nice. So maybe I'll come back to here and I'll just increase that a bit. And all right, go with something like that. You could do it here. Okay, I'm going to call that edges. Then we're going to add some dirt on top of this, so a fill layer. I'll use color and roughness. I'll up that, and color will do a dark brown. Black mask and generator, and we use the dirt generator. And this gives it a shadow. It gives it almost an ambient occlusion. Almost looks a little bit like it's oily. So I like that look. So that's going to be my dirt layer. And I'll probably do scratches on there as well. The only thing I might do is come in here and use triplanar. And I don't think you saw much of a change. I'm going to save. And I'm going to, let's do scratches, and I'll add just height and drop this down a little bit. A black mask and a fill, and in the grayscale I'll reset that, and I'll search space, start typing scratches, and use the last one to put some of this on here and play with the balance and up the contrast a bit, maybe a little bit less quantity, and decrease the width and decrease the length, and we'll just have the odd little imperfection in there just dented in. And of course you can always randomize it, choose another one, but I'm going to go back to that one. I like that one enough. Okay, and that's scratches. Now that is all I want for the moment. I'm going to select all of those. I could put it in a folder, or I'm just going to copy those. I'm going to come over here to the cage and delete the default layer. I want that on the cage as well. So I have that on the cage. And what I'll do is on the cage itself, I'll bring that up to 2K. And double check that I've got, yeah, anti-aliasing is on. All right, so there is that. So once again, we unwrapped this, or I unwrapped it previously, and I said just to experiment. Sometimes with these you may have to make a change, like I might want more or less of this here, just for the very ends. That's looking okay. It also looks a little bit dusty when you have that, so that's good. So that's those two main things. So let's just go on. You know what? I'm going to do the bulb real quick. All I'm going to do for the bulb is I'm going to come to the smart materials. I sometimes say I don't want to use smart materials, and then sometimes I do. I'm going to use this glass one that I have, glass courtyard. We'll drag it in. We'll have a look at it. It's just going to be a dead bulb, all right? But it's got some dirt, and you get the ambient occlusion or effect from the parts that are close to it. It's just got glass and dirt, just as a typical, pretty much any one of these ones. except for maybe this stuff with glowing edges. So I just want it like that as a dead bulb. So for the middle, let's come over here and drag this aluminum in here. So that's gone onto there. And come into the properties. I'm going to drop this down pretty far, about 3/4 dark. And roughness, let's bring up to about 0.35 or so in that area. So it's kind of like black plastic in a way. And then for this one, I'm going to, let's grab the metal edges and the dirt from somewhere. I'll just do it this way. Let's come back here and we'll paste them on and we'll see how it looks. I may have to make some adjustments to this. So I'm just going to hide the dirt and edges. I think the edges are okay. So you see on the thread, you get that nice white, that white thing. It makes it more visible. And just for dirt, I may just have to just reduce this. Just have a little bit in there to grunge it up, and that's kind of what I'm going for that stuff right there as well. Now that's pretty much what I'm going to do. Right now I've got the base stuff, all the stuff that's in brass or gold sort of at 2K. The bulb isn't. I didn't change that. You could put scratches on that. That might look neat. But it doesn't. I don't think it really needs it, and I don't think the middle part really needs it, so I'm just going to leave it like that. And the only other thing I was thinking is if you come back to the base, and if I create just a paint layer and go to maybe just alt-click height, only height, and drop this down almost halfway, I could put like some kind of decal on this, or like an indented thing like you'd see on a pipe, you know, you'd see the company name or whatever. And what I thought I would do is just bring in something that I've created. So I'll show you this, like this thing here says 300 watts. Like note that it's got a black background, it's got a white box it's a little bit rounded rectangle, and then just some black text on it. So black, white, and black. If I bring that in and I define it as an alpha, this is to the current session, I'll double click that. So again, you can see that it's black, white, with black text. Maybe I'll snap into orthographic. Maybe I'll do it at the front. So I'm just on a paint layer, and I'll come over here, I'll zoom in, and maybe I'll make that a little bigger. I don't want it too big. And so you can see it says 300 watts, whatever. I don't know if this bulb would be 300 watts, but if I stamp that in, I'll get this. So let's go back to perspective. And let's come to another layer. So it's the text sticks out and the rectangle goes in, if that's the effect you're looking for, or it sort of looks like it does. So I'm just going to call this alpha, and I'm going to drag it down below the dirt because I'm going to just use an anchor point to get some of the dirt on this to make it look a bit more realistic. So it's just this paint layer now. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to choose anchor point, and it will have the same name as the layer name. So if you wanted that called text, this would be called text. So it's just called alpha. That's fine. I'm going to come to the dirt generator itself and go in, scroll down to micro details and open this arrow up, put micro height to true, and then scroll to the bottom, micro height, choose the anchor point, which is called alpha, and nothing's happened yet. The reference channel right now is the base color, but this is an alpha with height, so I'm going to switch this to height, and now it's inherited some of the dirt on that base layer. And then you can open the levels here and you can adjust how you want this to be. So I'm going to sort of pull this, that makes it a little bit darker, I guess, and you just play with that until you get the amount of dirt that you would want on this. Just a little bit. Okay. And that is it. So there's the alpha, and I only want it on that layer. So whether or not you think that looks good or not, I don't know. Okay. All my layers are named the materials in Blender, so I'm going to come over to export textures, And you can see in my global settings, these are all the ones. If I just wanted to export the base, I could, but these are all the ones I'm going to use. I'm going to go to my output templates and choose PBR metallic roughness, and you can see that's going to do base color roughness, metallic, normal, height, and it does emissive. Now the other thing is I want to look at my normal, and you can see over here it says DirectX. I'm going to drag this one, this OpenGL for Blender, and switch it to RGB. And also it has this in this tag in the name of the map, and I only want texture set and base color, so that I don't get the name of the file or the project itself. So I'm just going to highlight that, the $ mesh underscore, and delete. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that for all of these. So you'll see when we export how that the names will be easier. And I'm putting this in a separate folder. For me, it's just easier to work this way. So we're going to do that. List of exports. You can see right here, it's going to be Bulkhead Light, little base color, whatever. So I'm going to come over here to choose PBR metallic roughness, and where I want it, I'm going to put it right here in this folder. I'm going to leave it as 8 bits PNG. That's fine with me. I'm going to export. And down here you see it says just cage base color. Cage. So all the cage parts, the base, the middle, the bulb, instead of having a long name in front of it. So I like it like that. So I'm going to make sure that this is saved. Let's come back over to Blender. And there's my model. I'm going to save. I'm going to come to shading now. And I've already got base selected. So I'm going to click on the Principled BSDF and Shift Control T. And come over here. And now I just have to search base. Principled texture setup, drag them all in, and then we'll do the cage. Shift Control T. Okay, the bulb. Now the bulb is not going to have any opacity or anything. It's just going to have sort of colors and roughness and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to look like that. And one more is the middle. And Principled textured setup. We have done it. This is how it's looking in Blender. The only other thing is we could come over here, we could turn on ambient occlusion, and I sometimes play with this and sometimes exaggerate it, put 1 and 2 there. I'm not going to actually do a render, but we could turn on bloom, we could turn on not that, we could turn on screen space reflections and turn this to refraction. And that would be good enough. And let's see, I've got that there, and I called that L1. So if I bring in another collection instance of that, and we could take that and just rotate the Z a little bit to have different orientations of it, perhaps. And you know, if you want something like that, let's say, and we can try different lightings. I happen to like that one a lot just for this particular model. I find it makes it look nice and dusty. And there we go. Okay, so we've textured the Bulkhead Light and it is ready to go. It is a little bit high poly, I admit that, but you could make it lower poly and put that in your game, in your submarine or something like that if you wanted. All right, so that's going to be it for now. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.